The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
We're born to be alive, not merely existing or persisting as we always have before. Welcome to the show. You're listening to Until Now with Rosie Pekar. Yes, it is an Australian accent for you Americans listening there. However, I'll be the only Australian accent today because my guest, and I always feature ordinary people with extraordinary experiences, and our guest today certainly fulfills that. You may have heard his name spoken in hallowed halls or dark alleyways or anywhere else. His name is Don Tolman, and he is the whole food health guru. And I've known Don for over a decade, and I'm really excited to have him here as a guest just before Christmas to help us all out, to stay on track and help heal any of those persistent or resistant issues we've got going in our lives. So enough for me for the moment. Welcome, Don Tolman.
Well, thank you so much. It's really great to be on the show. Thank you.
And it is, and also not just for our American listeners, for our Australian listeners or any other country that we happen to have on at the moment. Don is also the whole food cowboy, as you've probably picked up by his accent we've got there. And he's a cowboy because he likes to be heretical, and the true meaning of the word heretic is to be a free thinker. It means not being controlled or ordained or mandated to think has previously been thunk or thought before by the masses. And that is what I absolutely love. And just the common sense, real results of putting to the test and applying it by doing to get results. And no better place to test than with our own health and well-being. So I'm looking forward to some nuggets that I know you're going to share today. But for those that may have lived in a cave somewhere and not come across you, as you've shared a cave next to them, fill our listeners in a little bit about yourself.
I just, as a young boy, I grew up in a family that was so medical. My brothers and sisters and mom and dad were always going to doctors, and I never went. I never had any problems. I never had any issues. And, so all of a sudden, things just kind of flipped and went weird. And anyway, it put me on the path of studying the ancient and arcane records around the world. I spent 17 years. I ran away from home when I was 16 because I don't know what it was. I was a natural-born vegetarian. And my dad was on the cover of Field and Stream magazine, which is a hunter magazine, holding up the heads of the dead animals that he had killed. And I just couldn't handle it. I could not handle the screaming and the crying of the animals that he was killing and seeing and watching. So anyway, I ran away. I spent 17 years traveling around the world, jumping on trains without them knowing I was there to get to the next cities, getting on freight liners and asking the captains if I mopped and cleaned up, could I get on and go to the next continent. I went into rare book collections, ancient and arcane collections. I went all around. I was just wanting to find an ancient meal that I'd heard about as a young kid because my friends kept inviting me to Sunday school, and we weren't a member of their church. But I finally went one time, heard this little story out of the book of Daniel about a meal called pulse in the King James Version of the Bible, and how the kids were brighter and stronger in their countenance and became 10 times brighter and more intelligent than all of the learned men that the king had. And it just set me on fire. I wanted to find out what pulse was, because no, the local bishop didn't know, the Sunday school teacher didn't know. I went around. I was hunting it down. I never did find it in that 17 years. Yeah.
Captivated from a very early age, and had a personal interest to find something that would work for yourself and others. So if I fast forward 17 years later of much research and delving into, ancient history, ancient documents, current information, I understand. And for those listeners that want to join the live chat, just join at w4cy.com. And you can ask your questions of Don Tolman, because he's going to be sharing. I'm going to guide him towards what I want, because I've got a limited period of time with him. So I want to maximize my return. So I'll gently guide. And when it's not so gentle, I'll just prompt and prod. And we will get to what works best for us as human beings. If you had, I understand that you, in listening to your talks previously, you talk about eating in season and eating whole foods, that your body identifies and understands nutrition at a core level that we intellectually don't follow and understand. So we don't have to be caught up and consumed by knowing all the background behind things, but just identifying really simply what will work for us.
Yeah, it was the ancient wisdom that plant whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains are our medicines. And to be able to understand the signs of nature, looking at the geometries, that a thing like unto itself is drawn, that a walnut looks like the brain. It has a left and right hemisphere in the convoluted genetic folds, just like the neocortex of the brain. A sliced carrot looks like an iris and a pupil, and it looks like an eyeball, and it's good for the eyes. A tomato has 4 chambers, it's red. The heart has 4 chambers, it's red. And even in today's academic chemical laboratories, they've confirmed, and it's published, that yes, foods target the anatomical structures of the body based on the same similar geometries. And so, like kidney beans, yes, they target the kidneys and their function. And it just goes on and on. Celery, it looks like a bone, snaps like a bone, and it's good for the bones. And so anyway, when I found all this information for the last 50 years, I've been barking it to the public. And I just felt like an idiot because no one was listening until about the last 5 or 6 years. Now it's growing fast. And I've been called the whole food medicine man and the Indiana Jones of whole foods because of all of those ancient records you can't even see anymore. They're under lock and key. But I was thankful that I saw them. And so that's what I teach around the world, literally.
Exactly. And coming back to grassroots, you share, just for a common sense perspective, because those that aren't aware of me, my background is 16 years in law enforcement investigations. So I don't look at things lightly. I delve deeply into them, and you either tend to prove or you tend to disprove. So you don't arbitrarily pick one side or another. We healthily sit on a fence and we find out what works for us, what doesn't work for us. And you shared that, pharmaceutical comes of the Greek word pharmakia, which means poison. And we've been indoctrinated for a long period of time to think it's normal, it's okay, and worst yet, the biggest lie of all, that it's safe to continue to poison ourselves in order to get well. Now, that's the biggest oxymoron I've ever heard, and I know that you all certainly have your bit to say on that.
Oh, it's just unbelievable. Yeah, pharmakia is poison. Pharmaceutical means poison makers. There's not a single medical pharmaceutical drug that isn't poisonous and toxic to the human body, and every single one of them creates side effects. If a medical drug doesn't create side effects to get you to come back and take more poisons or more, prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, whatever, it doesn't qualify as a medical drug. And so that's the problem with whole foods. They cause no side effects except health and healing. And so the pharmaceutical industry funds writers and editorialists to bash different foods. Oh, don't ever eat fruit. They have too much sugar. It feeds cancer. All of it is a total scam. Fruits clear cancers. It gives energy. It does all kinds of stuff. The word fruit means to enliven and to enhance. The word vegetable means to establish and to strengthen. And that's what they do.
Exactly. Life enhancing, enriching foods as opposed to life deadening or depriving of life foods, which is what I guess the pharmaceutical industry, together with our food industry of packaged and processed foods, does. And I've got a few listener questions here that I'll just run quickly past, Don, so you can sum it up. Someone's asked, how long did you run away for? Well, it was a lengthy period of time. Let's go for that. We won't give away your full age there, Don, unless you really want it. Did you just know you were against meat, or did it come from the fact that your dad was a hunter? Can you heal a sick person? What is the best things to eat if you have a chronic illness? Because I know we can wrap all these questions up with a summary answer. And is there natural herbs that will help in healing? Well, I think we're sort of focusing on natural foods, not just the herbs, because you talk about seasonal eating, because we've got listeners from different locations around the world. So what will be right for one person at this time of year may not necessarily work to the best advantage, though I still don't think it will be totally a disadvantage at this time of year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, no, it's the physics of embracing. It's the nature of embracing the physics of nature around us. Eat the foods that come forward in the seasons in the temperate zone where you live. Because humans, and they've shown this in today's studies, humans' cells have the 98% of the same DNA as plants. And so the plant cells, when you eat them and offer them to the body as an offering, or a tithing as it was called anciently, that's because your body was the temple, it was the church, it was the kingdom or queendom, depending whether you're male or female. And those offerings target the cells and lift the functional capacities when you eat the foods in the season that they come forward. And so people always live.
So winter might be a lot of vitamin C things like oranges and lemons and limes, whereas I'm in summertime now. So I would have different, what would be your, do you have a top, 3 or 4 go-to, best fruits of season, or no, just whatever is in season?
Just whatever's in season. And that used to be called a raw food diet. It wasn't R-A-W. That word doesn't even come into existence until the 1700s. It was R-A, raw food, which was one of the names of the sun. The sun was called Ra, R-A. And so it was
same as the Egyptian
in season, and it had to do with the water content of the foods. And in the summers, the water content goes way high. So melons, like watermelon and all of that. Peaches. It has so much water content. Don't ever barbecue a watermelon. That's stupid. But when
I didn't know anybody did. That might be an American thing, and also throw it in the fryer and add chocolate.
There you go, and wash it down with Coca-Cola.
I've traveled the bulk of America, so I know what I'm talking on is true. You would not see that over here in Australia. We look at things you guys eat and we go, are you really going to put that in your mouth? Have you actually thought any part of this through? And then we went to China and they've got spiders and scorpions on sticks and they're barbecuing them. So it was
I know. It's so ridiculous.
Well, but again, that might be something that's in season. It's plant-based. Got it. So someone's asked a question. Is there truth to eating right for your blood type? Is that a philosophy that you ascribe to, or you pretty much think within our DNA, there's enough of a consciousness and a well-being within our inherent knowingness that our blood type is not so relevant?
I think the blood types is pure bullshit.
Okay.
I'm a type O positive, and I'm a type O positive. And I'm not supposed to eat anything except dead animals, according to the O positive. I've never eaten one in my entire life. I'm 70 years old. I've never been to a doctor in my entire life. I've never had the flu. I get the little sniffles in the nose about every decade. I suck on rock salt, like peak Himalayan rock salt. The next day it's all gone. Then I'm good for another decade. And it's just silly, this crap that has been shoved onto the people for the last 3 to 4 generations. It's crazy.
Again, it's another sales spiel. You know, it's marketing, it's hype, it's advertising. And, you know, sometimes it can be the people with the limited amount of knowledge race out there in altruistic fashion. And we all want to, you know, share what we know that we believe to be true. However, some people don't do their homework. As simple as that. And again, the more that we can divide and segregate and put into little factions and groups, the more we have conflict, we have disharmony and divided opinion that creates, you know, more issues instead of getting results. So I just want to ask, symptoms are a sign or a signal of chaos in the body. So suppressing symptoms, which people often do without dealing with the underlying cause, is only a temporary fix that will lead to a bigger problem, because your body's trying to get your attention and you're trying to shut it up or mask with or medicate in this case, or sedate. So when you have those symptoms, what would you recommend at that time? Obviously there's going to be a variation of symptoms. So is there a simplified strategy to lead people through to help heal themselves?
Well, there is. The ancient healers were brilliant. They were not primitive and stupid. They were brilliant. They knew. They were scholars, which means to observe out of interest. Sorry,
they've left landmarks that we can't copy, so we certainly can't call them stupid.
No, they were brilliant. And they knew there's only one human disease, one. And yet you can go on to Google and type in how many human diseases. And depending on the medical website you come to, it's going to say 16,000, 23,000, 36,000, 9,000 rare diseases. And it's pure bullshit. There's only one disease. And that's chaos at the atomic level, which creates chaos at the molecular, which creates chaos at the cellular. And when enough cells are in chaos, you feel it as a signal or a symptom of that chaos. And then the ancients knew wherever that chaos or symptom you were feeling, they knew the foods to eat, and or even fasting on water or juices and liquids, you know, and they knew how to clear the whole thing up and clear the cause of it. Pharmaceuticals only suppress the symptom and create side effects, and the side effects get you to go to the doctor to get more drugs for the side effects. And then those drugs create side effects. You would not believe the number of people I see on airplanes that are sitting there and popping 30 to 40 pharmaceutical drugs, washing it down with Coca-Cola, and the whole thing just pisses me off, and I want to slap the hell out of them.
I know. I had one of my girlfriends that was another good friend of mine who's an author of Healing the Body Naturally with Whole Foods, and he saved this woman's life simply by the first stretch was just taking her off Dr. Pepper. She was drinking so much, and that's an American thing to drink so much soda. And as I say that, it may well be an Australian thing, because I'm just not surrounded with the people who do that. Like I was brought up that we just had it on special occasions like Christmas or Easter or those holidays when you would have excess in some way. And the rest of the time we drank water and milk. They were our main two that we had. And most of the time it was just water. And that's what my son has. His first choice will be water, because I'm aware that soda leaches calcium out of your bones. And not only does it leach it out, but you're actually not putting anything of value or good in.
Absolutely nothing. And it's all toxic.
Exactly.
And if people would just look into the highest stockholders of Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi-Cola, 7-Up, and the others, they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. If they knew the ingredients in that crap, it would shock the hell out of them.
Well, it's no accident that Coca-Cola and McDonald's actually sponsored one of the obesity summits. So there's no accidental planning in that. But anyway, I digress. Now, there's a listener that's asked, you have a book out there. We'll share that at the end because, yes, you've got a plethora of information and books and knowledge to share with people. But you mentioned the system, the body. Previously, I've heard you in talks talking about it very simply in understanding that it can be like just tubes. If you think of your body as a series of tubes, and tubes only like to, let the flow go through when they're clear. So if you explain that analogy to people, because you do it so well.
Well, yeah, your entire body, and they knew this anciently and taught it, and now it's confirmed by the entire pharmaceutical, medical industry investigating it. Your body is nothing but a system of tubes. The intestinal canal is the largest, not the longest, but the largest tube in the human body. It starts at the mouth, runs all the way through the body to the back door. And even your heart is a plexi of over 2 million tubes. And the circulatory system, the arteries, the veins, the capillaries, and the smallest capillaries links in to the lymphatic tubes, which are the cleansing stream of the body. It's all tubes. You have millions and millions of kilometers or kilometers or whatever you might call them, miles or whatever,
yes.
anyway, of tubes, your tubes. And there's only so many things that can happen to tubes. And that's what creates discomfort today called dis-ease or disease.
Exactly.
Of course, they make it a mystery, and it's no mystery. The tubes can be smashed, they can be cut, they can expand and even explode or fall apart, and they can become clogged. And what clogs them is plaque.
Yes,
and so
plaque.
Any discomfort you have in your body. What's that?
Sorry, Don. I was saying, and plaque often commonly I've heard you refer to coming from a lot of processed food.
Oh, that's the only place it ever comes from.
Yes.
It's fake food and fake drinks and supplements in capsule forms. And most people don't even look into this stuff. And
exactly.
Then
the toxicities for people to understand
drugs.
The simple way, we talk about fake food as being anything that comes in a box or a tin or a package because there are some people that have never even identified with whole foods. All the foods they do eat are actually processed. And I said this to my son the other night, as he was helping me prepare our salad that we were making together with our dinner. I still am a meat eater, sorry, Don, but you won't get me off my chicken yet. Work on me next life. But
no, you can eat dead birds. Go ahead. I mean, if you want to eat dead birds, that's okay.
I feed the butcher birds and the swans out of guilt. Out the front and out the back. Go and eat his buddy.
Yeah.
No, but we were preparing the salad and he's only 8 and he's helping put the things in and chop it up. And I said, I feel sorry for the kids that are brought up with parents that have eaten only ever out of boxes and tins because they simply won't understand. Not only do they lack the nutrition, but when their own children come along, we're breeding a whole generation of individuals that have never known or identified with real whole food.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's been like 3 generations now that the pharmaceutical industry, through public education and taking over the curriculums, forcing vaccines on the people, social media and the news, forcing them to believe that what they're saying is science. And that is pure bullshit. It has nothing to do with reality.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's going to be a whole other show that we'll get sidetracked on, but we'll stay on healing right now because I had a couple of people before I came on that said, oh, can you ask Don Tolman about, one was to do with psoriasis, if you've got top foods to either A, avoid or A, utilize within your own diet, add into your diet to amend with that. So we'll start with psoriasis.
Yep, the thing to do is 2 things. Wherever the psoriasis is, take good Celtic nature-made salt, not messed with man salt, where they put in anti-caking agents, which is aluminum and all the crap they put in. Nature-made salt, pour extra virgin olive oil into the salt, and do a scrub, a salt oil scrub. Rinse it off, and then don't dry it. Let it just evaporate. Then make a fruit smoothie, and put in 1/2 cup of organic extra virgin olive oil and drink that each day. Use bananas, mangoes, any of the fruits that you like, but make sure you throw in the bananas. And 1/2 cup of extra virgin olive oil. You drink that every day, and guess what? That whole thing will clear up and heal. It will shock you. It'll blow you away.
So will that also work not just for psoriasis, but it sounds like that's a natural anti-inflammatory drink?
It is. Yep. Very good.
So turmeric is certainly getting the rounds a lot at the moment. Is there a difference between, just good old powdered turmeric bought at the supermarket, or because I know they're selling it in capsules and supplements, which I don't agree on. I've simply used the powder or the root.
Either use the powder, but the best is the actual root.
Yes.
Ginger and turmeric, just grate them up and eat them.
Yes.
And that's the best way to do it.
Because a lot of disease certainly is, as you mentioned, plaque, but I think that we can live with certain levels of plaque without showing any signs or being inconvenienced by it. However, I think once it gets to that state of inflammation that we've ignored it for so long and keep adding into it, that it's really getting our attention, and hence the discomfort, the ante is upped.
Yeah. And so many people are afraid of salt, and salt is one of the most healing foods that there is in the human body. It's the electrolyte of all the cells in the human body. And so salt can help get rid of the inflammation, as well as the turmeric, the ginger, citrus, things like that. But they're being bashed by editorialists that are paid by the pharmaceutical industry to put those things out there. So don't even listen to that crap. If they ever bash a food, don't listen to it. It's pure bullshit.
Exactly. It was one of the things with cholesterol, the good and bad cholesterol fight, whereas they didn't pay attention to homocysteine in the blood, yet we have our young kids dying of heart attacks on the football fields, and they discover they've got an elevated level of homocysteine in the blood when they should never have any.
Yeah. Jeez,
and
it's crazy.
That comes from one source, which is, your favorite. They're eating meat.
Yep.
So they had a common answer to that, just good old vitamin B, up your anti of vitamin B, and it sort of cleared the blood of the homocysteine. Now, there's a couple of questions other come in. How can we avoid things like chemical trails? What about spices? What are your thoughts? And someone with kidney disease can't have salt. What do you do about that? Well, I think you'll certainly have an answer on that one. I know I do.
Yep. That's pure bullshit.
Yep. But the difference is that distinction of which type of salt, because as you mentioned before, good old table salt is nasty, nasty stuff. However, if you get, Himalayan sea salt, and your own body's composition, the cellular level is the same as the ocean that you go swimming. So obviously it opens up the cells to allow the oxygen to come in to be oxygenated, as opposed to taking oxygen out, which your good old table salt does. So what spices? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would go with Celtic sea salt and the pink Himalayan rock salt. And then with the spices, I think any of the spices are fine as long as they are not irradiated. And you have to do your homework on that one. Because a lot of the spices now are being irradiated, and it's the pharmaceutical industry pushing it so that it doesn't do the healing that the spices naturally do, because that damages their pharmaceutical drugs. So just good, unirradiated spices, and do your homework, research it, look into it, and find out.
Now, also with kidney disease, I know that you recommend kidney beans because the simple, as you said, the knowledge from the whole food itself, if it looks like the body part, eat it.
Yeah, that's it. And even cranberries for kidney and urinary tract problems. Cranberry juice that's unsweetened. And if you need it sweet, then just add raw organic honey to it. And then even eating cranberries that are dried, that are organic with no sulfites, sulfates, and all the pharmaceutical chemicals shoved into it. And
Yes.
you can clear that up so easily. But yeah, even the kidney beans, any of the beans, legumes, any of those things help to target that entire system.
Okay. If you've got a question for Don Tolman, our whole food health guru, you're listening to Until Now with Rosie Pekar on W4CY Radio. So you can join the live chat just by going to w4cy.com and ask your questions on what you need to have healed. Now, I wanted to ask about that alchemy of nature that you talk about so often, and I thoroughly enjoy hearing. I don't think I can hear it too often.
Wow. Yeah. The alchemy of nature was air, fire, earth, and water. And that's where the word a few came into the English language. A few there be that find it. Find what? Air, fire, earth, and water. It's an acronym for air, fire, earth, and water. Air,
Yes.
good, clean, fresh air. You don't sleep in air conditioning. You don't sleep in furnace air. Open the windows. If it's warm, turn on a fan. Don't ever use furnace air or air conditioning at night. Fire was sunlight. Sunlight is one of the healthiest, most profound things that a human can get into. And the pharmaceutical industry attacked the sun in the 1960s and said the sun is there to kill you. Here, use our chemical skin cream, which is the second leading cause of skin cancer, is sunscreen. And you can find that, I'm sure, on the internet.
Exactly. There's no
surprise. In their own
surprise.
medical journals.
The incidence there's no surprise that the incidence is on the increase of all cancers. The more that we fight the war on cancer, the more that we're getting it, experiencing it, whereas those that aren't fighting it aren't experiencing it. And they might think, Rose, you're being really simplistic. However, the results are out there. People just don't look. They believe all that they're being told. Now, there was just one question I'll just clarify before we continue on that was asked. How do you know if spices are that thing you mentioned, which is you mentioned it being irradiated? Is there a symbol or sign, or what's the key word to look for on the spice packaging that would demonstrate it has been?
You know, that's what's so sad. It used to be forced to be on there. Now it's been funded to the governments to where they don't have to show it.
Ah, okay.
And so if you can find spices that somehow are put together in your own temperate zone and find the people that are doing it, that's going to be your best source. It's just so sad what is going on. They use nuclear radiation.
Right.
And it's just horrible.
So I guess your local farmers markets and, buy the things yourself and make it yourself, or if not, local farmers who supply produce to your stores in the area that will be your best bet. Now, I know that you have 13 specific foods that you recommend that heal and regenerate you. What are those 13 foods for our listeners, if you had the top of the list?
Well, it goes to the body systems, and there's 13 top healing foods for each of the body systems, and it's pretty much based on the ancient signs of nature or signatures of foods. And volume 3 of the Pharmacist Desk Reference, FARM, which is books that I've put together, shows those top 13 foods for each of the body systems. And, that would be too much to get into here. But,
okay, so top 3. We always got to give them a takeaway. They're going to go and eat lunch shortly, and here in Australia they'll eat lunch. They'll be going to bed there in America.
Yeah.
But if they're going to start the day the next morning, it's like I know I had in myself a chronic kidney condition, and it led to uterine fibroids. It led to a cluster of uterine cysts, and it went blah, 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 have a hysterectomy, blah, 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 all that common talk that
Oh,
they like
my
to give to
God.
women over 50, that I said, no, thank you. It's my body. I'm the boss of it. I'm the senior physician in my own healthcare, and I know what to do.
Good for you.
And what I did at the time, because I knew what foods I had to avoid that raised my level of inflammation, and sadly, there were a lot of foods that I really loved. And I removed those from my diet, and I thought, wow, it's almost no fun eating. And I figured, well, if I've got to remove so much at the time, I did do a fast, and I did a 17-day saltwater fast, but also with turmeric, a little bit of turmeric and a little bit of honey in the morning. And I had that condition for over 18 months with debilitating pain, to now that I don't need to go get checked up. I know I don't need to see an nurse because I have zero pain whatsoever. And obviously it has certainly worked within my own system. And I know you have had fasts for 40 days and then gone and ran a marathon, which many people would find hard to believe, especially for a man who's now 70.
I know. And it was actually filmed by Hollywood Films. They followed in a pickup truck with the cameras and everything and filmed the entire marathon. It was really a fascinating. But people need to realize the only disease in the human body or discomfort is you're either toxic or you're deficient. And if you lived in a modern developed country, you're probably toxic and deficient because of all the fake drinks, fake foods, fake crap, and stuff that's just shoved onto the people. So you fast and you cleanse. You eat plant-based whole foods. It overcomes deficiencies and helps to clear toxicities, and that's how you heal yourself. People have got to learn to be their own doctors and to be their own pharmacists, F-A-R-M, getting back to plant foods as their medicines. It's brilliant and it works.
And research. I saw recently online another woman who'd mentioned, she'd been recommended a hysterectomy, but fortunately, when she was in to have it done, it basically didn't happen. And I thought, well, that intervention was divine, because you got an opportunity that she got input from many more people, that she's now seeking a different course. Now, we're not here to tell people what to do and how to do it. However, we certainly are here to tell people, get informed. And research for yourself what works best, because for you, you're a living demonstration of it working within your own system. I know I'm a living demonstration of the things that I've taken on board that are working within my system. If a person's, going to keep drinking all this soft drink and adding in all this processed food, they're sort of, climbing 3 steps up the ladder, sliding down 4, and wondering why they're not reaching the top.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
So we've had a question of, where do you find these recipes? What would you answer to that? I know what my answer would be.
What's your answer?
My answer would be, if you've got a garden, great. It's that old Hippocratic oath, let medicine be your food and let your food be your medicine. So if you can't identify it as a whole food, don't eat it. That's my recipe.
Well, that's my recipe too.
We're on the same page. I could nearly wear your cowboy hat. I might be walking in your boots shortly, Don.
Yeah, there you go, right.
Look out. Now the questions come in. How can we heal ourselves? Well, they may have missed the earlier start. If you're eating crap, stop it. That's number 1 golden rule. What would be your next number 1 golden rule, Don?
Don't take any supplements in pill or capsule forms. And if people will look into it, it will shock them. And even a book called Vitamania, I think her name was Catherine Pryor, she exposed the crap about supplements in pills and capsules. It's insane what they're putting in there and what they're doing to people to give them a natural mental high, so they think the supplements are helping them. Get your nutrition, your vitamins, your minerals, your protein, your enzymes, your hormones. Everything is in plants. Every plant on this earth has every known nutritional component, all of them, but in different concentrations based on the plant. It's just like proteins. Every plant on this earth has all 200,000 identifiable proteins. And people say, well, where do you get your protein if you're vegetarian? Protein comes of the Greek word proteus, which means first source. The only first source of protein is plants. That's why the strongest animals and humans on this earth are all vegetarian. You look at horses, you look at cows, you look at buffaloes, you look at elephants, you look at all of them, rhinoceros, they're all they eat is grass and leaves. Where the hell do they get their protein? And so people are just scammed into believing, oh, you got to murder innocent earthling animals and eat their dead bodies to get protein. And it's the pharmaceutical industry, which is owned by the religious industries, which most people have never even looked into, out of Vatican City and all the others. But anyway, I don't want to get into that.
That's another show. We'll just offend.
It's time that they wake up and stop eating. Don't eat fish. Don't eat seafood. Don't eat birds. Don't eat pigs. Don't eat cows. Don't eat kangaroos. Don't eat alligators. It's like, good God, wake up and learn the wisdom of the ages, which has been taken away from the people. And then you have no disease. I'm 70 years old, and I've never been to a doctor except one time, and that's when I was 15, drug into a dental office, and they drilled out all of my teeth. I didn't have any cavities. They drilled all my teeth, put in mercury fillings, and I woke up the next morning in so much pain. And it was my mother that fell for the crap from the dentist because she was on the welfare or dole system that was all paid for. And so that was it. I ran away and that was it. I never went back.
And unfortunately, there's a few that have succumbed to that. So one of the questions is, will it cause a shock if you quit cold turkey?
You'll have a rough 3 to 5 days.
Yeah, depends how toxic you are, obviously, because I know for me,
exactly,
I couldn't crawl out of bed for 3 days, so I'd plan it around something where you don't have parties and functions and all the rest on, because if you've got overload, which I had within my blood, a pathologist said to me, I've seen worse blood, but it's been in a cadaver. That's not good. I was living proof that you can be so toxic, but I'd taken a lot of headache pills over many, many years for a long period of time for severe migraines.
That's horrible. They create ongoing migraines. That's what the drugs do.
Yeah, I'm having a good response with caffeine, interestingly enough. Now, and I don't normally have caffeine. I'm sort of working with that because I'd tried a lot of lavender, I'd sea salt, more water, all the other things. I'm just going to go over some of these questions to cover them quickly in our last few minutes we've got here. So what do you do to get the bad stuff out of your body? Well, it will come out naturally when you fast, won't it, Don?
Absolutely. The ancients thought there are 3 pathways to healing. There's fast, faster, and faster.
Yes, I like that. So, share the fast, faster, and fastest ways.
Yeah, the fastest healing is going on nothing but water, just like animals do. No animal on this earth, if it's sick or injured, will eat anything. They stop. And the ancient healers observed that and tested it on themselves and others and found out it was brilliant. If you go on nothing but water for anywhere from 5 to 20 days, that's the fastest path of healing. Animals won't eat anything until they instinctively know, okay, my body's ready to eat. Then they'll get up, and they could be as skinny as bones and skin, and then they'll start eating, and it all comes back, and they're fine. And
people have the misperception. But people have the misperception that if I fast, I won't have energy, which is a myth. I know from fact, and you obviously know, but, share that.
Yep. It's bullshit. You won't have energy for the first 3 to 5 days, and then your energy returns. And if people have no energy, if they feel lethargic, if they feel brain fog, just go on the faster path, not the fastest, go on the faster, and just have juices. If you have fruit juices, within 5 to 7 days, your energy will be through the roof. And people are taught, oh, don't ever eat fruit. It has sugar. It feeds cancer. And it's pure bullshit.
Yeah, it's the processed sugar we're avoiding. Yes.
And then there's the fast path, which is just going on good, nature-made whole foods and eating those. So there's fast, which is just eating the foods that grow in the temperate zone that you live in the season that it's there. So there's faster, which is the juices, and even soups blended so that you can drink them while they're warm or hot. And then there's fastest, which is going on water. And so it's whatever a person is capable of doing.
Exactly, because there's a couple of questions saying that, so is it healthy for all people to fast? How long can you be on just water? And if you have a chronic illness, can you do this fast?
Yes, you can, if you mentally and emotionally want to do it. But the ancient wisdom was 40 days. But now, going into the age of Aquarius, the ancient wisdom that's recorded was do 20 days water, 20 days juices. That's the fastest. But you can go ahead and just do, anywhere from 3 to 7 to 10 days water, and then do juices. It will blow you away how you feel and how you heal and how the thing restores.
Yes, I was surprised in my own case. I did 17 days and I didn't start out planning to do 17 days. I just planned, I felt cruddy anyway. And I thought, if I can't eat the foods I like, what's the point in eating? And my first 3 days were pretty rough and ordinary. And that's an understatement. I barely moved.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But after that, I got my strength back. And I was going to lunch with my son, and he was eating, surrounded by other people eating. And he said, "Aren't you hungry, Mum?" And I said, funnily enough, no, I'm not. And I was waiting for true hunger to appear. And I thought, as soon as I'm actually hungry, I will eat. Well, it was by the 17th day that I deliberately, and I went and played squash during this time. And my friends were going, "How can you play squash when you haven't eaten?" And I said, "Because I've got plenty of energy." And I was obviously utilizing some fat within my body to be able to do that. And that's the good thing. Your body uses up all what's decrepit, defunct, of no use to you, is the first that's sacrificed to go. So it's a great way to clean up your own body. And it doesn't have to have the workload to do. But I only started back eating because I thought I knew the functions I had coming up in a couple of weeks. And the important part for people to know is coming off a fast to be very slow and very gentle and not go back to those cruddy habits that you started with. So just one minute on that before we head off, Don.
Yeah, the whole thing, when you fast, faster or fastest, you'll lose weight, but it's the adipose and lipid tissues, which people know as fat cells, they mutate and they go into stem cells, and the stem cells go all through the body, from the bottom of your feet to your brain, and heal and repair any damage or any loss of functional capacity. That's why it works so well. Animals know it instinctively, and humans have forgotten the wisdom of the ages of what that does.
We love that, Don. Now, where can people get in touch with you to find out your plethora of books and programs and all the wealth of knowledge that you have to share?
There's 2 websites. One in Australia is DonTolmanInternational.com. My website here in the United States is just DonTolman.com. And so I checked both of them out.
TOLMAN.
Yeah. And even YouTube, there's a lot of, I don't know who puts it up there. I've never done it. But there's a lot of stuff on YouTube about Don Tolman. And so if you're relaxed and you're being happy and you have a no additive, no preservative beer or an organic wine, so it takes away the pain of watching me on YouTube, you'll be fine.
Thank you so much, Don. We've loved having you on, and no doubt I'm going to have you again after the Christmas break when they'll need to undo all that they've
I
done
like it.
in the silly season. Thanks for being our whole food cowboy here today.
Well,
and for our
thank you,
listeners,
Rosie.
you've been listening to W4CY Radio with Rosie Pekar on Until Now. And yes, that is Australian. So if you find an American with the spelling of Pekar, you've got someone entirely different. And for more motivation and inspiration, check out Don Tolman, Tolman. And have a great upcoming Christmas. We'll be on next week, where I've got Deb Weber again, who will be sharing some of her insights to get more information. My website is at kickbutt.com.au because I'm Australian. And if you've got any information on guests you want to see, please let me know. And we look forward to talking to you next week. In the meantime, everyone, until now or until next week.